A garden becomes truly alive when it welcomes not only plants but also the creatures that sing among them. Birdhouses and feeders, especially when crafted from repurposed treasures, extend a warm invitation to nature's smallest guests. An old wooden box, once used for storage, can become a home for sparrows. A weathered lantern, hung from a branch, transforms into a feeder where finches gather at dawn. Each piece carries both history and hope, offering shelter and sustenance in exchange for song. Rustic birdhouses need not be perfect. Their beauty comes from the aged grain of the wood, the uneven nails, or the soft rust on a tin roof. These imperfections blend seamlessly into the garden, as though they were always meant to belong. Placed among climbing vines or beside tall sunflowers, they become part of the scenery, yet they hum with life. Creating them is simple and fulfilling. Ensure small entry holes suit the birds in your region. Line feeders with natural seed, and place them in quiet spots where birds feel safe. Over time, you'll notice not just the flutter of wings but also the harmony it brings. Morning becomes brighter with birdsong, evenings gentler with the soft rustle of wings settling into shelter. What makes rustic repurposed birdhouses special is not only their charm but their reminder of connection. They show that even the simplest objects can nurture life, that nothing is wasted when given with care. And as birds come and go, carrying seeds, singing songs and weaving nests, your garden becomes more than a place of plants. It becomes a sanctuary of shared living, where nature and memory dwell side by side. There is something timeless about a garden swing. It doesn't need to be grand. Even the simplest repurposed design carries the promise of quiet joy. Imagine finding an old wooden beam, a length of rope that once held tools in your shed, or planks from a pallet that has already lived a life of service. In the right hands, these forgotten materials become more than scraps. They become a seat that waits patiently in the garden, inviting you to pause, sway, and listen to the breeze. A rustic swing built from repurposed wood blends naturally into the garden. The grain of the timber carries its own history, and when brushed with oil or left to weather softly, it tells a story that feels both humble and elegant. You might add a cushion or two, perhaps stitched from fabric you no longer use, to make the seat comfortable. The swing does not demand perfection. Its charm lies in the way it feels like it has always been part of the landscape. Practicality also matters. Make sure the beams are strong, the ropes secure, and the frame well balanced. Safety is part of the design just as much as beauty. Position it where sunlight gently filters through leaves, or where you can overlook a flower bed. Soon it becomes more than a piece of furniture. It becomes a memory maker. On quiet afternoons, children may laugh here, or you may sit alone with a book, your feet brushing lightly against the grass. The garden swing becomes a sanctuary within your sanctuary, proof that creativity and repurposing can turn the simplest of things into treasures that endure. Every garden tells its story through the way you walk across it. A pathway is not just a trail from one corner to another. It is an invitation to slow down, to wander, to notice small details hidden among leaves and flowers. When made from repurposed materials, these paths carry whispers of the past. An old brick that once stood in a wall, a plank of wood that once formed part of a bench, a tile saved from a forgotten floor, all find new life beneath your feet. A rustic pathway doesn't seek symmetry or polished perfection. Instead, its beauty lies in soft irregularities. The uneven shapes of old stones, the gentle curve of the walk, and the moss that settles quietly between crevices bring authenticity. Every step feels grounded, as though you are walking on a piece of living history. Designing such a path is also wonderfully practical. Repurposed stone, wood, or tiles often cost little, and their aged character blends seamlessly with the natural world. As you lay each piece, consider how the plants will spill over the edges. Lavender brushing your legs, small daisies peeking between stones, or creeping thyme releasing its fragrance when stepped upon. These details transform the path into an experience, not just a surface. At dusk, when lanterns glow softly along its edges, the pathway becomes more than a route. It becomes a journey. Every turn invites discovery, every pause a moment of reflection. Water has a way of softening a garden, turning it into a sanctuary of sound and reflection. The gentle trickle of a small fountain or the still mirror of a pond brings peace that words often cannot. When made from repurposed materials, these features carry not only beauty but also the quiet wisdom of renewal. An old barrel, a forgotten basin, or a metal can once used daily in the garden can be reborn as the very heart of your outdoor retreat. A rustic water feature does not need grandeur. A wooden barrel, lined properly to hold water, can become a pond where lilies open at dawn and dragonflies hover in the afternoon light. An old watering can, tipped just so, can pour endlessly into a stone basin, its rhythm soothing both plants and people nearby. The imperfections in these materials, the dents, the scratches, the softened edges, only deepen their charm. Practical care is simple. Position your water feature where sunlight touches it part of the day but does not dry it out completely. Add a few aquatic plants, perhaps a floating lily or a trailing stem of watermint, to keep the balance alive. The play of light on water will do the rest, casting ripples that dance across leaves and walls. In the evening, as the air grows still, the sound of trickling water feels almost like a lullaby. The garden becomes a place of meditation, reminding you that beauty often comes from what was once overlooked. A rustic water feature, crafted with care, is more than decoration. It is a promise of serenity, a place where time slows and the soul breathes. Every garden deserves a place where you can simply sit and be. A corner that holds you gently, where the air is filled with the fragrance of flowers and the quiet hum of bees. With repurposed furniture, such spaces take on a personality of their own. An old bench once forgotten in storage, a chair rescued from a flea market, or a table built from discarded wood. Together they form a corner that feels less like design and more like memory. Rustic furniture by nature invites comfort. Its slightly worn edges, faded colors, and handmade character whisper of stories lived before. Add a soft cushion, a throw in natural tones, or a clay pot placed nearby, and suddenly the corner feels alive. An extension of the home, yet more open, more free. It is here that one might sip morning tea, read beneath the shade, or share quiet laughter with a friend. Positioning is key. Tuck the corner under a vine-draped pergola, beside a patch of lavender, or in view of a water feature. The furniture does not need to match perfectly. In fact, mismatched pieces often enhance the charm. What matters most is how they invite you to linger. As evening falls, lanterns or candles can transform this nook into a sanctuary of light and shadow. The rustic furniture, softened by time, reflects the day's warmth back to you. In such a corner, the garden becomes not only a place to grow plants, but a place to nurture the soul. When space is limited, the garden simply learns to grow upward. Vertical gardening is both practical and poetic. Plants reaching skyward, filling empty walls with color, texture, and life. With repurposed materials, even the smallest corner becomes an opportunity. An old ladder, a wooden crate, or a weathered pallet that once carried goods can now carry green, transforming emptiness into abundance. There is beauty in watching herbs spill gently from stacked boxes, their fragrance carried by the breeze. A rustic ladder lined with terracotta pots feels almost like a living sculpture, each step holding a piece of nature. Against a simple wall, a palette garden offers variety: succulents, trailing vines, and blooms all layered like brushstrokes on a canvas. What once seemed like waste becomes art, blending sustainability with charm. Practical care is simple. Ensure each planter drains well to keep roots healthy, and arrange plants according to their love for sun or shade. Vertical gardens can even serve as living kitchen shelves: parsley, thyme, and mint within reach whenever needed. The higher levels invite cascading plants that soften the structure, creating movement as they sway in the wind. As the garden rises, so too does the sense of possibility. Plain wall becomes a story of growth. A narrow corner becomes... There is something almost theatrical about walking beneath an arch or sitting under a pergola. These structures frame the garden, guiding the eye upward, welcoming both people and plants to gather. When built from repurposed materials, arches and pergolas take on an even deeper charm. Aged wood that once sheltered a barn, a metal frame salvaged from a forgotten gate, beams that have carried stories of work and weather. Together, they rise again to hold beauty instead of burden. A rustic arch, dressed in climbing roses or ivy, turns an ordinary entrance into a doorway of wonder. Each step beneath it feels like passage into another world, where blooms brush your shoulders and dappled light softens the air. A pergola, with beams stretched across the sky, offers shelter not just from the sun, but from the pace of the day. Under its shade, a bench or table becomes a quiet stage for tea, conversation, or reflection. Repurposed wood often carries marks of time, knots, grain, or weathered hues that lend authenticity. Metal frames, when softened by trailing vines, balance strength with delicacy. Hanging lanterns, wind chimes, or even draped fabric can transform these structures into living art. Practicality matters too. Position them where climbing plants can thrive, where morning light touches but afternoon shade rests. Over time, the pergola becomes less a structure and more a companion to the garden's growth. Season after season, year after year. An arch or pergola built from repurposed treasures is not only sustainable, but soulful. It tells the garden visitor. In every garden, storage is both a necessity and an opportunity. Tools, seeds, and pots need a place to rest, but in a rustic setting, even storage can become part of the story. Repurposed materials offer a chance to create solutions that are not only practical but also brimming with character. An old wardrobe rescued from disuse, a stack of wooden crates once meant for transport, or pallets weathered by time. All can be reborn as keepers of order and charm. Imagine opening the doors of a vintage cabinet in the garden, the scent of wood mingling with the fragrance of nearby herbs. Inside, everything has its place. Jars of seeds, rolls of twine, gloves waiting for the next planting. What once stood forgotten in a corner of the home now lives again, blending function with beauty under the open sky. The pleasure of rustic storage lies in its imperfections. Pallets stacked into shelves may lean slightly, but they hold terracotta pots with grace. Crates arranged creatively form a wall of compartments where tools rest like old friends. Even the act of organizing becomes an expression of design, where order meets poetry. Practical tips matter too. Protect the wood with natural oil. Ensure good ventilation to keep contents dry. And place the storage where it can be both accessible and admired. Soon, storage becomes more than utility. It becomes part of the garden's personality. Another corner of quiet. Light has the power to transform a garden, especially when it is soft and welcoming. Rustic lighting, created from repurposed treasures, carries warmth that feels less about utility and more about atmosphere. A glass jar once forgotten in the pantry becomes a lantern when fitted with a candle or soft bulb. A watering can, dotted with tiny holes, can spill light the way it once spilled water, scattering patterns across pathways. Each glow is both functional and poetic, guiding footsteps while stirring imagination. There is no need for bright, artificial glare. The charm of rustic garden lighting lies in its subtlety. The way it flickers, the way it plays gently on leaves, the way it transforms familiar spaces into something magical. A row of mason jar lanterns strung from branches feels like a celebration, even on an ordinary night. A simple candle inside a weathered lantern casts shadows that shift with the wind, turning stillness into a quiet dance. Practicality adds ease. Choose safe placements for candles, or use solar-powered bulbs hidden inside repurposed holders to keep the charm without worry. Place them where pathways curve, where a seating corner rests, or near water features so that reflections double the beauty. As night settles, the garden does not fade into darkness. It awakens into another kind of life. Crickets sing, leaves rustle, and the gentle glow of rustic lighting makes the garden feel like a secret haven. Repurposed treasures remind us that even the smallest objects can shine again, bringing light not only to paths but also to the spirit of those who wander among them. Every planter tells a story, and when it is repurposed, the story deepens. What once carried tools, food, or household treasures can now carry life itself. Sprigs of mint, a cascade of flowers, or the proud leaves of a young tomato plant. Repurposed planters bring personality into the garden, making each corner unique. A wooden crate softens with ivy spilling over. A bucket blooms with marigolds, and an enamel teapot finds new life with fragrant basil sprouting inside. The beauty of vintage planters lies in their imperfection. A wheelbarrow with chipped paint becomes a canvas for nature, the scratches only adding to its charm. Ceramic bowls that once sat in cupboards shine anew beneath the sun, now cradling soil and roots. These objects, touched by time, invite the garden to grow not just in height and color, but also in character. Creating such planters is delightfully simple. Drill small holes for drainage, line containers with stones or fabric, and choose plants that suit their size. Place them where they can shine, in rows along a path, clustered in cozy corners, or scattered to surprise the eye. Each planter becomes a small world of its own, brimming with life and memory. And as the seasons turn, these vessels can